Look at this guy, falling into a bottomless void with particles ripping right past him. You're not going to believe how simple this effect actually is, and the crazy part? It was all filmed on a black box in a studio with zero green screen involved. Let me show you how we built this in 4 simple steps so you can pull it off too. You may have seen a couple days ago I posted the side-by-side of before and after compositing for this music video. This is how we did it. So stick around, watch to the end, and you'll learn all of the tricks that I used to get these results. We're going to break down each clip in this tutorial into 4 major steps. So first things first, we got a rotoscope. There was no green screen involved at all in this video. So we had our talent laying on a black box, waving his arms around like he was falling, while being surrounded in a black fabric environment. And why was that? Firstly, we didn't have enough green screen material, and I knew in advance I wanted to put him in a black void anyway. So the black fabric that we used around him blended in perfectly. This also helped us avoid getting any of that green spill on him that you can see on a green screen from time to time. I used Final Cut Pro's Magic Mask to cut him out and started on the frame where he was most visible, let that track, cleaned up all the edges and dropped him on a solid black background. Step 2 is the dust and particles. That is what makes these shots feel alive. Now I tried everything. I looked through Artlist, I went on YouTube to see what videos I could download, I even tried prompting some AI tools, but none of it worked. It was either too compressed or inconsistent, so I brute forced it, I made my own dust clips, and it was the best decision ever. Now I only made 4 variations, that being dust towards camera, slow and fast, and dust coming up from the side, slow and fast. And with just those 4 variations, you can crop them, you can zoom in and out, you can reverse them, and suddenly you've got dozens of usable combinations and overlays. They were all exported in ProRes 444, so it's clean, it's transparent, and it's flexible. That consistency across all these dust elements is what was key in this project. Now step 3 was the animation, and this is some magic. We scale, we zoom, and we even add a little bit of handheld shake. Here is where we get to make the world and the void and the fall feel real. This is where all the small moves and motions equal a big payoff. And lastly, step 4, it's motion blur. This is the polish to everything. I used Ryan Nangle's motion blur preset, plus a handful of other goodies to sell the motion. Without it, there would be no way of getting that convincing momentum in any of this animation. For this music video, I was inspired by the Sunken Place in the movie Get Out. If you haven't seen it, it's a great watch, I highly recommend it. But yeah, this is exactly what our inspiration was, and we just took a bit of a creative interpretation on it for our music video. My favorite part of that whole scene is the slow-mo and the dust and particle elements that they used. Obviously, being Hollywood, they've got bigger budgets to make it look cleaner, but you know, this is a beginner's guide and we're just having fun trying to create some cool effects. In this tutorial, I'll be using a handful of built-in effects from Final Cut Pro, such as their zoom blur, their magic mask, and their shape masks, but we also do have some help from some other preset effect packs. From Ryan Nangle, we're using his motion blur preset, his CC lens effect plugin, and his Bulge effect plugin. We'll also be using Pixel Film Studio's FCPX camera plugin, that's a mouthful, for its camera shake effect. And if you have After Effects handy, we'll also be using Creation Effects Dust and Pollen plugin, which is a free download as well. And lastly, to sandwich it all together, I'll be coloring with Dehancer Pro for my color grade, but you can use whatever software, whatever color grading process works for you. You don't need to use all of these exact plugins because some of them are paid, but this is just what I used to get my desired result. The most important effect in this whole music video is the dust and pollen particle effect. And I'm not going to show you how I made them because that's a whole tutorial video within itself. So instead, I'm going to be linking you a tutorial which I followed, which can be found here in the sidebar or in the description by Creation Effects. As I mentioned earlier, it is a free plugin, and I'm sure you can find alternative ways of making particles in whatever software you're using. But if you're looking to get the exact results I did, all of the relevant links to the plugins and effects that I used will be linked in the description below. None of this is a paid partnership, I'm just promoting good tools for the fun of it. Now, with that out of the way, let's jump into our editing software and make some magic. All right, so now that we're inside of Final Cut Pro, what exactly are we looking at here? So I've got my completed clip of Ishkwan falling in slow-mo with all the particles slowly whizzing by him. So let's reverse engineer this shot without any compositing. You can just see the raw footage is him laying on a black box surrounded by fabric. So if we want to isolate him from that, let's just select our clip, grab the Magic Mask tool, and start selecting Ishkwan. We're going to start on a frame where we can see the most of him, so that way we end up with the cleanest tracking result. That way the final result is accurate and we can avoid having to clean up any edges if we need. It's looking pretty good to start with, and we're already halfway done. So now that we have him rotoscoped, we can start adding our dust elements. I know I want to have them falling away from camera, so if we have a dust element where the particles are coming towards us, it feels like something should be moving in the opposite direction. To add some extra movement and momentum to these dust elements, I'm just going to duplicate my dust element and add Final Cut Pro's zoom blur, and that way it just stretches out the particle a little bit more and it makes it feel like we're falling down towards the particles. Now, if we bring Ishkwan back in, it's looking a little flat. The movement doesn't match exactly, and this is where we actually get to start animating our clips. Our goal here is to match his movement with the particle speed. In this case, we have some slow moving particles and it is a slow motion clip. We shouldn't really need to move him too much. Let's just scale down, let's just take 20% off and see what that looks like. That's already looking so much better. He's falling slightly faster than the camera is. The particles are whizzing by. He's disappearing off into the distance slowly. When I chuck my color grade on everything, it turns this plain footage into this. Let's move on to clip number 2. That was relatively easy enough. So this next shot is the same angle. It's a close-up of our talent. So let's start by rotoscoping him again, just separating him from the background. And now I also want to make this shot feel a little bit more chaotic since we're in real-time speed, not slow-mo. So now with him rotoscoped, I'm just going to add a dust element towards camera underneath him. And this is the fast dust element. That's not looking too bad, but we've still got some work to do. I'm just going to add some rotation to Ishkwan, just because I feel like we're falling at the same rate as him. The camera is almost strapped to his chest in a way, but the rotation back and forth, it's just going to give us a little bit more chaos to his already fast movement. Now that we're done with the rotoscoping, the dust elements, and some of the movement, now we can play with some real toys. That being Pixel Film Studios' random camera shake effect. This will help sell our shots, it will sell the movement, because not only is it affecting the talent layer, it's also affecting the dust layers as well. So we'll marry all of these clips together and we'll make it feel all part of the same world. Now you'll have to play around and learn with it because the default settings are pretty good straight out of the box, but depending on your clip length, it will intensify or lessen the effect of the shake. And let me show you what I mean. This clip is about 4 seconds long, and you can see it's pretty intense, but if I drag it out just a little longer, you can see the effect, the shakiness has dramatically reduced. And now if we shorten our effect, if this was a 1 second clip, default settings, it's way too shaky, way too shaky. So just have a mess around, play with it until it feels right. A quick overview of what this effect is doing in the first place is, firstly, it's going to add some motion blur of its own, which is great. It will help sell the effect of the actual movement. Then secondly, it also has the ability to focus hunt. This is when the camera is, going in and out of focus because it's trying to find what the sharp thing in the image is. It's a good effect, but for our purposes, we'll leave it off. Thirdly, this is where we get to control the actual movement of the camera. I find that having a little bit of everything here turned on is good, and you can dial it in as you need, but the amount is describing how far in one direction it is going to go. The speed slider is how quickly it's going to move between those 2 points, and the jitter is the randomness pattern. With all of these dialed in and enabled, once we slap our color grade on, for our final result, we get a convincing POV shot where Ishkwan is now falling, and our background and speed and handheld effect glue it all together. Now onto the third clip. This is a side-on point of view. We're going to be using the same techniques that we've learned through clip 1 and through clip 2. So we're just going to rotoscope Ishkwan out. And because his hair is so fine here in this shot, I don't want to leave any of that out in the mask. So I'm just going to increase the feather towards about 200%, which I believe is the max you can go. And now with him cut out, I just want to make it feel like we're falling slightly faster than him. So I'm just going to add a quick and short keyframe, moving his Y value up. So he slowly rises up in the frame over the course of the clip. Now that we've got our movement locked in, we can find a dust element that is going to work for us. This is a slow-mo clip, so we're going to try find our slow dust element. I want him to feel like he's moving at the same rate as the dust. So I'm just going to add some extra depth here with another dust element, making it less flat. I'm going to duplicate the previous layer, and I'm just going to scale it up to 200%. I might even chuck on a directional blur, and that way these bigger chunks of dust are not all one uniform size. And the directional blur effect is just going to stretch these out. And we don't need to worry too much about resolution loss when we're scaling like this, if we're using a blur effect. Now the finishing touch to this clip is to just duplicate that dust element one more time. And that way, if we have it sitting above everything, it will be sitting closer to camera, more out of focus. So we're having 3 distinct levels of depth in this clip. Let's slap our color grade on there and have a look at our results and see where it really pops. Now moving on to clip number 4, similar to clip 3, this time around we're at regular speed. And we also have a ton of camera movement in the shot. So let me show you how I got there. So I've already rotoscoped him out. I've increased the feather mask outward to about 200%. Now I'm just going to add our dust element up from the side on fast motion. And we're just going to add a directional blur to make things a little more extreme and intensified that falling speed. With this done, I'm just going to duplicate that layer again and add it on top of Ishkwan so that we have him sandwiched between 2 layers of dust. Now this is not super convincing yet, but we still have a little bit of animation to do. So let's start by grabbing our Ishkwan clip. We're just going to scale him down, maybe 45, 50%, and we're just going to skip 6, 7 frames ahead. We're going to bring him up to about 115%. So if we used about 7 frames before, let's skip about 14 frames ahead now, and we'll scale him up to about 140%. Let's also add a small rotation and position change so it feels a little bit more natural. And to explain why I've added 2 different layers of zooming here is I wanted an initial quick burst of a zoom and then a slower, more gradual zoom. This way it feels like the cameraman initially found Ishkwan, and as he was steadying himself, he's locked in and slowly is pushed in on him. Now with Ishkwan's animation done, we can copy and paste these exact effects onto our top dust layer. This way it feels like the dust that is closest to him is moving and rotating and adjusting at the same rate, and it should be if it were a real shot. I know we're taking some creative liberties here with the physics at times, but it's these little things that help make it feel a little bit more believable. Now with our bottom dust layer, I think we're just going to keep the dust rotation the same, but we're going to do a small scale up from 100% to 200% across that same keyframing time, which is what, about a second and a little bit. This way, that dust layer will feel like it's being compressed by a telephoto lens. To add the final source to marry all of these clips together, we're just going to be adding our random camera shake effect. And again, I'm going to be mostly leaving this on default settings, but we're just going to ease in and out our animation. Why we're doing this is because it kind of adds to the realism of what it's like when you're zooming in and out of something, right? You ever notice when you're filming on your phone, for example, on 1x zoom and then going into 10x, all of those micro jitters are intensified? Well, this is what we're aiming to emulate. Now, with all of that done, this is what our result looks like when we add our color, and you can see how much of a big difference it makes with just a little bit of animation and a little bit of dust. All right, now moving into clip 5, we're going to take this whole effect to another level. We're going to be adding 3 different copies that are all going to be falling at once, and I personally love it. I think it's the most recognizable shot in the whole music video. So let me show you how we did it. I'm going to skip past the rotoscoping stuff since you get the idea by now. But the main thing here is having him fall at the same rate across all the clips to make it look consistent. So the easiest way to do that is by using the exact same clip and just adding your start and end keyframes of where you want him to go. So in our case, that'll be getting him from the top of the screen and animating him down to the bottom. All right, so now with our animation locked in, we can duplicate it as many times as you desire. In our example, we duplicated him 2 more times, and right now, those are just stacked on top of each other. So what makes it different? We're just going to delay the clips by 1 to 2 seconds each time. But whatever you choose, just make sure you're consistent with all the following clips. So what does that actually look like? So let's grab our second clip here, and we'll just hit the R tool to figure out where our 2-second mark is. And we're just going to grab our third clip, and we're just going to measure again, where is our 2-second? Just about here. Now that clip starts there. So now you've got 3 clips all falling in sequence, with the last clip coming into frame 4 seconds after the first initial fall. Now at the moment it's still feeling pretty flat, so let's compound clip these 3 Ishquan sequences into one clip, so that way we can add some additional animation on top of it all. I'm firstly just going to scale them down to about 60%, and then we're going to add some dust layers. I'm going to be adding 3 to be exact. For all 3 dust elements, I'm going to be adding some directional blur because we are going to be messing with the scale here, so we don't want to get any weird pixelating. I'm going to be adding 1 above the compound clip and then 2 underneath the compound clip. So with our first dust element, I'm just going to increase the scale to about 300%. For our second one underneath Ishquan, we're just going to increase that to about 200%. And for this last clip, I'll just leave it at 100. But I'm going to add 1 adjustment layer to the top of everything, and I'll show you why. We're going to mess the scale here. Well, let's add a keyframe at the start of our clip to 100% and skip to the end, and we'll change that to 200%. That way, everything underneath this adjustment layer is all going to be affected at the same time. All right, we're looking good. Let's add some motion blur on top of it all just to give it a bit more motivated movement, and we'll pop our color grade on as well. And let's have a look. Beautiful, you've got a great looking clip. Just so easy to do these effects. All right, now moving on to clip 6, we're switching it up a little bit. We're actually looking from Ishquan's perspective with this shot as he falls away from this floating screen-like object. All right, now with our raw clips here, let's initially start by compounding our performance clip. And why we're doing that is because if I add the bulge effect that we're going to be using, it just doesn't give the right look. So we need to compound it first, then we can go inside of this compound. Let's just change the scale to about 50%, and we'll also add a shape mask just to square things off a little bit. Now let's exit that compound clip. Let's go into our effects panel and let's just search Bulge 2. Now, as you can see, because we've got all of that extra room for the stretch now, it looks so much better than it did without the compound. It's got plenty of room to distort, and let's just tidy things up as well. Let's get rid of those edges a little bit by adding just another shape mask on the edge. It kind of creates this pincushion effect, like it's being displayed on a curved surface, which is what we're looking for. So let's grab some dust elements. Now, this is the first clip that we've actually seen from Ishquan's perspective, right? So we've only got 4 dust elements. What are we going to do? The dust is meant to be going in the opposite direction. It's meant to be falling away from us now, right? So all we got to do is we just grab our fast dust element, we just reverse it. And now the motion is going in the opposite direction and it looks pretty good already. So I'm just going to duplicate this dust layer. I'm just going to add it on top of this distorted square. So that way it actually feels like there's a little bit of dust between us and the screen, and then there's dust even beyond that. And just to make things a little bit more believable, I'm going to make these dust chunks a little bit bigger. So I'm going to increase the scale to about 300%. Now, if you still think this is looking a little off, don't worry. What we've got to do next is match the motion of this floating screen to the motion of the dust. So we're just going to select this compound clip. Let's skip to the end here. Let's make a keyframe and let's drop our scale down to 50%. And if we jump back to the start, you know, this clip is about 5 seconds long. Let's make it 100% scale again. You know, this is all just about eyeballing, right? So just mess around with it until it feels right. But if I just give that a quick play, that already feels pretty good. It feels like it's moving within the same environment. Now we can slap some motion blur on top of this already, and that'll help sandwich everything a little bit more. But let's add some random camera shake that'll really glue everything together. And this time, because it is a longer clip and we're also changing perspectives, we're gonna be messing around with the settings here. I don't want it to be on default settings this time. So I'm just going to really slow down all of these animation controls. I don't want it to feel too chaotic because otherwise you won't be able to see the performance that's happening on the floating screen, right? I want it to feel a little bit more like a gentle sway. So let's ease in and out that animation. And that's looking pretty good. Let's throw the color grade on there and have a look at it. Let's see what we think, guys. Is that convincing? I'm sold. And now finishing up this tutorial with clip 7, we're going to be using all of our skills that we've learned through this tutorial and putting them to use. This time round, things are a little bit different. We aren't seeing things from Ishquan's perspective. We're actually seeing it from a little bit further behind, right? We're making the camera a falling character as well. So we need to actually be behind Ishquan here, and he's going to be catching up in speed to us a little bit as well. So using the same shape mask and bulge technique from clip 6, we're going to be using that same skill set just to get our floating screen sorted, making sure that everything is in a compound before you add that bulge. And we'll clean up these edges with the shape mask. And what we'll do is we'll just shrink this clip down to about 50%. And we'll just move it to the top of our screen. And this will make sense in a second. Now I can add my dust layer in front and behind that screen. The layer above, we're just gonna set to, let me have a look, about 300% I think would be right. And again, because we are falling from the opposite perspective now, we want these dust clips reversed. So everything makes visual continuity sense. I just love that this entire music video is him just laying on a box in different positions. He looked like a fool on the day, but I'm glad he committed to it so we can quickly rotoscope him out as well. And I'll just keyframe his scale and positioning. So let's go to the start of our clip here. Let's set that keyframe position to 40%, and we'll just pop them at the bottom of our floating screen here. And let's skip to the end of our clip. This is a 4-second clip, almost 5 seconds. So we can scale them up to about 80%. And let's just keep him at the bottom of the screen. We don't want him just dead center for this one. Now with all of our layers here, it's looking all right. It's not looking too bad, but it could look better. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be adding an adjustment layer just on top of everything here, because what we're gonna try and do, we're going to go to the start of our clip and let's zoom in, about 150, 180% here. Let's make this floating screen and Ishquan fill the frame. And let's skip to the end of our clip here. And let's just zoom back out to 100% and we'll zero out our X and Y axes. All right, now let's give that a play. So what we've done here is essentially we've made the camera fall at the same rate as our talent. So the floating Ishquan, isn't actually moving all that much in scale. Instead, it's the floating screen and all of the dust that's whizzing by us is moving at such an incredible rate. This makes everything feel like we're moving further away from that screen and we're actually falling through space with Ishquan. With our animation locked in, let's add a little bit of motion blur as well to make our fall just a little bit more realistic. And we'll also grab some random camera shake. And again, we want to keep this pretty low. We want it to feel like a bit of a gentle sway, not too chaotic. Making sure to have that ease in and ease out enabled this time. And yeah, let's turn on all of our speeds and we'll just reduce our movements a little bit. All right, let's give it a play with our color grade. I love it. That looks great. And you know what really sells it? It's the subtle shift. It's the subtle shift because the dust moves with it as well. And that just about concludes this tutorial, guys. That's how I built an entire void with just 4 dust clips, a couple rotoscopes, and a small toolkit of plugins that lead to endless possibilities. If you try this effect on any of your own edits, drop a comment or tag me below. I'd love to see how you can improve it. I really love making these effects breakdowns of music videos I've done. So if you have any more breakdown videos you want me to do from other music videos I've shot or effects that I've used in the past, drop a comment below and I'll make sure to get that done for you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And until the next time, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.